Hey everyone, this is Curb Knight bringing you another standard match, and today we have Messiah on the left and Gandeeva on the right. So I have actually cast this exact matchup before, although this time it is being piloted by different players. And apologies in advance if I'm not going to be as enthusiastic about commentating this match, just because the editing process was kind of arduous for this. As you can see, this is going to be a decently long match, and there are quite a few things that get me a little frustrated, I guess. Mostly just a bunch of small misplays. It's honestly not a big deal, you know. Playing Vanguard, you have to realize that not everyone starts out as an amazing player, and obviously as you play you'll get better and you'll learn more from your misplays. So this match is really just going to be a huge collection of kind of me pointing out misplays, missteps, and kind of, I guess, just giving some advice on how you can improve if you decide to play either of these decks. I'm sure that people who do play these decks might be a little bit frustrated seeing these players pilot them, but I just do want to preface this game by saying, you know, take it easy. Everyone was a beginner at some point. So anyways, I guess getting into the match, we do actually have Messiah going first, which is not where you want to be playing a dry deck set, although you are up against Gandeeva, so you kind of don't really have very much of a well, it's not terrible. If you go second against Gandeeva, you're kind of in a terrible situation, but you definitely do not want to be going first when you're playing a strike deck set. Anyways, we do see him doing the correct play of not calling anything. Typical Messiah things, you don't really want to call anything to board unless it's like Makani, and especially in this matchup where I believe I even used Messiah as the example of a deck that can't easily rush Gandeeva because your pieces are way too important. We do see a very good block there guarding the rear guard swing and then just taking the Vanguard swing. Unfortunately, we are already at 2. Ideally, you would want to be guarding a lot early, especially if you're playing something like Messiah and your late game is much better than your early game. So kind of fortunate we're already at 2. If we had the 15k block, I would have just committed it during that first turn, not even go to 1, and then just like take this swing or guard this one and take the other one just to have that guaranteed damage. But once again, we do see them doing the correct play, which is to obviously not call anything. Because once again, Messiah's pieces are just way too important to actually commit to rush. It really can't afford it. At the same time, what am I trying to say? Oh, yes, that you are giving them 0 UBDs. As we see a 2 pass here, hitting to a front trigger, but unfortunately not getting that second trigger, so we're not going to pass through. So leaving the Gandeeva at 1. Since they are playing the grade 2 from Gandeeva, they are going to be able to do quite a few things. I personally think Gandeeva probably should just take in that swing. You know, being at 2 is not terrible. Your Gandeeva, you scale pretty quickly, at least a hell of a lot faster than Messiah does, I would say. So going into this turn, probably just going to be discarding right into the Gandeeva using the skill. Thankfully, they didn't leave any UBDs for you, so you can start drawing right away as we do right into that Gandeeva, and then obviously just shotgun the skill. Checking the top 5, doesn't really matter what it is there because there are obviously no rear guards, so we are going to be able to bind 1 and draw 1. So finish shuffling up that deck, going to be binding 1 card, getting our first bound card, drawing into a card. So now we do need to find some way to bind 4 more if we do want to get that crit. If we have the grade 3, that shouldn't be too hard. We would just need the grade 3 that gets us to 3, and then we would probably need, unfortunately there isn't an easy way to get to 5 when your opponent didn't commit anything, but if we do have a counter charger or a multi-attacker, there's the grade 3 that I was just talking about, as we Soul Blast 1, bind the Brachial Force, and then bind another one from drop and draw a card. So we're going to draw the card, and then of course there we go, the bind. So now we just do need 2 cards in bind. If we have a counter charger as well as just like a multi-attacker or even the other grade 2, we should be able to reach that 5 bind that we desperately do need. Well, I don't know if we desperately need it, but you know, it's very nice to have. You really want the early pressure. You're not really worried as the Gandeeva player in this matchup. Like, sure, if you let Messiah get to 2nd or 3rd stride, things do get a little bit dicey depending on how they've been playing and how much advantage they've been making. But honestly, it's like, you don't really have to worry that much. You have enough pressure in the early game that you don't really have to worry about getting to that point. You'll probably end up killing Messiah before then. We do see the grade 2 coming on down thanks to having 0 UBDs. We do get to just counterblast 1, draw 1, and then bind 1. So we are short just 1 card, but if we do have a countercharger or multi-attacker, we will be getting there. But it's looking like we might not have it, otherwise we probably would have just slapped it down and then get to that 5 bind, which would have been really good. But that being said, 4 bind is not entirely terrible. The grade 2 is swinging for 18, which is a magic number. But looks like the Gandeeva is just going to be swinging 21, which is very unfortunate because we're going to be committing a 2 to pass here, a 15k or technically a 20k, which is a 2 to pass. 15k would have been a 2 to pass as well. As we swing the 18, easily guardable numbers. Both of these are just like 10k guards, thanks to the fact that we hit 4 and not 5, so we didn't actually hit that great threshold. I think here, if we hadn't taken as much damage, we would have been able to like take these a lot more comfortably, but unfortunately we are already at 3, and I do think obviously you want to be blocking that last attack. Honestly, I think that like being at 3 would be really good here, as we do discard the Astrolabe for Stride, and then of course putting the grade 4 Messiah does activate the Awakening Messiah to call itself out and Soul Charge 1. And here is another, or one of the first of quite a few misplays that we're going to be seeing. He is actually going to be calling the Awakening Messiah behind the Vanguard, which is probably the worst place you can put it, because your rear guards need that extra 10k power. Your Vanguard already has so much pressure. It does not need an extra 10k. As we're going to be seeing, that extra 10k is going to come in super handy here, as we do swing I forget what that guy's called. He's like a cyber golem or something. But anyways, he's going to swing, get 5k because there is a locked card on board, and then he's going to retire himself in order to call 1 card from the top 3, with the rest going to the bottom deck. Looks like we saw a double Makani as well as an alter ego Messiah there. Probably just going to be calling the... Honestly, calling the Messiah is not a bad choice. I mean, you do kind of want to have a Messiah in deck because you need it to stride into Exilix. I believe this is Amnesty right now, but looks like we're calling the Makani, and I think this is yet another misplay here. Calling the Makani behind the Arrestor Messiah, it does not need a booster. Like, sure, you'll hit a better number, but I think when you're facing off against Gandeeva, you really need to just like put the pressure on, and just like losing out on another attack there. We could have had 4, or that would have been 5 attacks if we had called it to the other column, but instead we're just going to be swinging with the Arrestor, unlocking it, or locking it, and taking out a 5k guard. And then we are going to be seeing a little bit of a cringe play here. We are going to be counterblasting on flipping and unlocking 4 cards, including our opponents. You know, Amnesty does allow you to unlock any number of cards, but you do not need to unlock your opponent's cards. Although, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess that's not entirely a terrible play, because I believe Messiah actually binds them face down, so probably we did that to play around Gandeeva. But at the same time, I think you just get rid of the unit. Like, sure, you're helping them with their strategy, but does it bind face down? No, I think it binds it face up, so that's even worse. But there is no reason to have done that. I'll have to double check the crest, because either way, you need to get their units off board. You need to rip their advantage as much as possible. So in this situation, we do see the Arrestor swing for a nice 58. This is just PG or take. In all honesty, you just take this swing, because that is way too big of a number, because we unlocked 4 cards. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that next turn, as we push them to 4 using the Arrestor to lock itself. And I think during this end phase is another reason why we definitely should not have unlocked the opponent's unit, because that means only 1 unit gets unlocked and we draw 1 card. Even if our opponent had bound that one face down, which, like I said, I need to double check, but even if they had bound it face down, you want that draw, because that counts as an unlock, and you need the cards in this matchup. You need to be able to live to that turn. But that being said, we did actually leave the golden 3-2 ratio, which is probably why the Makani was a better choice than the alter ego, because then we would have left 3 grades, and that would have been even worse. As we see the Gandeeva actually using its skill and only hitting the grade 1, which is not great for the Messiah player in this instance, because with the best harvest that we saw earlier that turn, that means they are going to draw 2, bind 2, as opposed to if they had hit 2, they would have been drawing 2 and binding 2, which is the same thing, but it does also mean that they can draw 2 more cards off of the best harvest. So they get a total of 4, whereas if they had hit there, they would have drawn 2 cards, and then when they retired the 3rd card, they would have drawn 1 more. So it's basically just a difference of 1 card. So I guess another addendum to that how to beat Gandeeva video, when your opponent does actually use best harvest, you want them to actually hit, because they do technically get 1 less draw, in all honesty, even when you're putting them to 0 UPDs, but you know, it is what it is. So anyways, another reason why this is such a terrible match for Messiah, you need a card to lock in order to actually use your stride skill, meaning you don't get 5k, you don't get to lock the opponent's units, and you do need more cards that will lock, as we see the grade 2 coming down and retiring that all-important Arrestor Messiah. And I believe we should have bound another card there, because Gandeeva does have a skill where you can actually bind a card face down whenever your opponent's rear guards are retired, whether it's by card effect or by battle. As long as it's during your turn, you do get to retire. So now, Messiah did actually get a very good card in set 11 that kind of helps it out. Well, I don't know if it's a very good card, but it's a card where you guard with it, and I think you Soul Blast 1 in order to call it. So that would give you a target to actually lock, allowing you to actually get rid of your opponent's units. But for now, it's looking like that Waking Messiah might be safe, but I guess we have to see what the Gandeeva player decides to do, whether they want to leave it on board or they just want to retire. But it looks like they are going to be retiring, as we see the grade 2 coming on down to retire the Awakening Messiah. Definitely the correct play, just because, you know, you don't want to leave Messiah with anything. Honestly, you don't need to. It doesn't really matter. Their lock doesn't really affect you that much. You're Gandeeva. You're beating this matchup anyway. And things go from bad to worse, as we see the counter charger as well as the multi-attacker. So this is definitely going to be a 4-attack turn with 6 cards face down and bind. Actually should be 8, because we forgot once again to use Gandeeva's skill. So swinging a clean 40 at the Vanguard honestly should be 48, no, 44, but you know, it's a better number, but it doesn't matter, because we are just going to be taking it as we bind the counter charger and then use the multi-attacker's skill in order to bind it and check the top 5 cards in order to call something. Calling probably the best call for Gandeeva, another one, a copy of the grade 3, and because we do actually have the extra copy of the grade 2 in the back row, which is definitely something that I think you should be playing as a Gandeeva player, to always have like a unit to bind just in case. But binding that card face down and then drawing card, binding another card, getting up to that 10, making a very nice threshold of 43k. So we are going to be swinging for 43 on all 3 of these, actually. I believe we did Persona Ride this turn. I think I forgot to mention that. But we are actually playing the counter heal for the crit, which I think is perfectly fine for Messiah. The tankier it is, the better you are. Let's see, this total shield is 40, 53, so that is a 1 to pass, actually. Since we did Persona Ride, that is a 1 to pass. So this would actually be a really good instance to use that new card from set 11 in order to actually call it back to give you a lock target. But unfortunately, I don't think we have it, as we commit a Destiny Dealer and an Arrestor Messiah. Definitely a debatable choice. I would have kept the Arrestor. It looks like we had a Klein in hand. I think just Arrestor is just an overall better card than the Klein, just like in almost every single way. But we do have 2 more attacks here. Guarding with an OT, interestingly, I think we honestly could have just taken that, bet on a defensive, and then maybe not have to commit that much shield in order to guard the last attack, and then, you know, we could have saved the OT for next turn. But either way, you know, this is what the players did. Just learn from the mistakes. Anyways, actually discarding the Messiah in order to go into Exlix Messiah, which is definitely a choice. It might be a little bit too early for Exlix, but at the same time, you do kind of have to finish things this turn. Unfortunately, we do not have a board to lock. Would have been so much better. We could have gotten a lot more attacks. Calling out the Klein, which is going to be getting us that extra attack, I guess. Another instance why Arrestor is so much better. If this were Arrestor, this would have been a 25k attack instead of a 20 attack, because Klein does need a locked card, whereas Arrestor does not need a locked card in order to get that extra 5k. Calling another Klein off the Klein, which is definitely interesting, but I guess it doesn't really matter because the Gandeeva took it for some reason. I think that was a 10. That was a super easy guard. I do know that the Vanguard is swinging with crit now, so you know you want to be wary of that, but it is just going to be met with a PG, as the Alexis is going to be unlocking the Klein, giving the entire front row plus 10k, and also giving itself a crit. We flip over a heal trigger, which is very nice, healing down to 4, giving the extra power to the Klein. But since there is no locked card, Klein is not going to be hitting that magic number. It looks like we have a Mikani as well as the Astrolabe Dragon in the drive check. So this Klein is getting pretty big, but I'm pretty sure after that best harvest, Gandeeva has more than enough cards to guard here. So 40, not hitting that magical 45 that Arrestor would have. But although in this case it doesn't really matter because obviously we got this off of the Klein. But you know, that would have been an Arrestor if you had kept that instead of the Klein, because you would have just unlocked it and then attacked with it. Number would have been exactly the same. Using the Klein to call another, and then going to be unlocking it during the end phase, and then using the Messiah skill to draw a card. A play you could have done exactly the same with Arrestor, and you wouldn't have lost out on a trigger that we just did right there. So deeply unfortunate. Small misplays like that will cost you games, and they will make your plays that much weaker. So do note. So any coping Messiah players, note how to play the deck to the best of your ability. If you want to go far with it. If you just want to have fun, it's cool, whatever. Just do your thing. But we do also see Messiah playing the counter heals, which, you know, I think you should be playing vanilla heals. I do not like those counter heals. If those counter heals gave plus 15k shield instead of just plus 10, I'd say, yeah, they're good. But since they only give 10, if you are on grade 1 and your opponent is swinging you at 18, you throw down a 20k shield, that is a 1 to pass, and that means absolutely jack. As we see, the reason you don't play those 10k shields, because in this instance they are completely dead. They're dead in most situations unless you're playing against Griffagila or a grade 4 deck. But committing 2 when we could have probably just committed the 1. How many did we have? 20, so it would have been 30. We could have just committed a 15k and another 5k. Instead we gave up 2 10ks. I guess it's the same, but you know, I'm just I'm just kind of, I don't know how to feel about like not playing the Ultima. I think I'm just too meta brain right now, where I'm just like, look, you should try and play like the best you can, right? But you know, I'm not gonna hate on people for playing things that they want, whatever they feel like. Anyways, as we do see a PG for the Vanguard hitting into a front trigger, so we only need to block one of these attacks, thankfully. But that being said, our chances of actually doing things, I think this is correct play, just taking the first one, and then looks like we have a PG for the last card. Discarding, I don't know what that was. I think that was Astrolabe, but I think that we actually had 3 PGs in hand, so we definitely should not have discarded our pieces. I think you should have kept the Astrolabe, just discard a PG for a PG. I know that especially if you're an early player, discarding your PG kind of sounds like heresy, right? Like, whoa, that's a complete guard. But in this situation, you need to be playing to win and not playing to live, because that one extra PG, as we see, it's just going to be taking space in your hand. And we do actually see a Messiah called out to attack. I think we really honestly should have just strided. I know we didn't have any column, but triple drive is better than twin drive, even if you're just swinging with Van. And then also another thing, just call the PG. Your PG is not helping you. You're not going to live this turn with 1 PG. But yeah, that PG is a 21k attacker because, you know, crests are kind of stupid and they allow you to gain an extra 15k on literally anything. So just, you know, just 2 more little misplays there. But it honestly looks like Gandeeva finally does have this in the bag. They're at 12. They've outlasted Messiah. Messiah is definitely a super defensive deck, but it cannot actually hold up that defense when you retire all of its pieces. And when there is nothing left and you are just swinging and not doing a whole lot. The Gandeeva is going to be swinging at the Vanguard 2 damage. You do definitely have to guard this, so commit the PG that you capped when you really shouldn't have, but it doesn't really matter as we do hit a critical trigger here, giving the power to the right side using the skill of the Burning Flail, just so I have to actually put in another little icon there. But swinging the Vanguard, or swinging at the Vanguard with that 2 crit is going to finish off the game. So that was a long one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do things like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.